So first thing I need to make sure everybody does today is the starter is a formal grade today. So if you take a look at my screen, right? So the video will be posted there at some point. But the starters today is December 7th starter. I want to make sure you understand the expectations here. So here is the piece of Nazi propaganda. Okay, here's the poster. So what I need you to do is use prior knowledge and the lesson from, I believe, Friday to help you complete the tacos organizer. So the tacos organizer, you'll see, is only I only gave you the letters. So question 1 is the letter T. You're not writing all of them here. You're just looking at, okay, what does the T stand for in the tacos organizer when it comes to analyzing Nazi propaganda or political cartoons? And then I want you to basically, put your answer there in that space. After you've done that, you'll hit next and you'll go to the A. So here's the A. So you should know what the A stands for, and based on what it stands for, you should properly answer that question. Okay, or type in what you would put in the tacos organizer based on this piece of Nazi propaganda. Then transition to C is question 3, and you'll put that information right there. And then the O. Okay, and then lastly, the S. So make sure that you do that and work on that right now, please. I don't want you to only put what it stands for. In fact, you don't even need to put what the O stands for, the S. You can if you want, that would make it easier. Okay, so keep that in mind and work on that right now. And honestly, this is a skill. So I don't mind if you use, I don't mind if you use whatever's available to you for you to accomplish this task. Okay, but go ahead and do that now. And then I am not going to allow you to leave class today until I know that this is done. Okay, so I'm going to give you some time now to complete it. Then I have to transition everybody to class, okay, to what we're doing today. And then I'm going to look back and see who's turned it in and who has not, and dismiss you based on that. Okay. Please let me know when you're done. All right, let's transition here. So again, we're going to come back to that, but if necessary, we'll come back to that just to make sure everybody does complete that. I do not want a 0 getting into your grade book for a formal grade this late in the quarter. Okay, so keep that in mind. So our objective today is to describe laws that discriminate. We're going to look at specific laws in different from different time periods and different regions of the world, and just kind of look at those laws to help build a foundation for laws that are legal or were deemed illegal, but also discriminated towards groups of people. Unit is Europe, statement of inquiry, ideology, impacts, interactions. So we completed the starter, I hope. Okay, and then we're going to begin 56, called discrimination laws, and then do the December 7th ticket out the door. And then your asynchronous work is to complete page 56. We will not get it all done in class today, so make sure that you make a special note to just make sure that you get that done today. So everybody go to page 56, please, in your digital notebook. I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, we should all be there. So bottom line is here, I've got 3 videos, and if you look at the organizer on page 56, you're going to see it's chunked up into those 3 as well. We're going to look at a brief introduction to Jim Crow and the Jim Crow era in the United States. Okay, here's the link there, and then the 5 questions. When did the laws begin in the southern United States? What did Jim Crow laws prevent African Americans from doing in their everyday lives? Were Jim Crow laws legal during this period? Why or why not? How was Jim Crow a stereotype? And why do you think the legal state-sponsored end of slavery led to the rise of Jim Crow laws for newly freed African Americans in the South? So we're just going to look at that and help us better understand laws that have discriminated against groups of people, specifically African Americans in the South in the United States. The second video, if you look here, is right here talking about Japanese Americans and discrimination against Japanese Americans prior to the World Wars and specifically during World War II. Okay, so we're going to look at that today, probably during asynchronous time. And then we're going to look at the Nuremberg laws as well, okay, talking about bringing it back to Germany and specific laws that targeted Jews during that time of World War II or leading up to World War II. Any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, but we'll get started here. So one thing I goofed on the link for this first video because it starts halfway through. And so I want to make sure you go back to the beginning, and we're going to watch this one together, and then we can talk about it briefly. And feel free to put comments and thoughts and ideas that come to mind in the chat and questions, and the chat will be live as we progress here.
Girl. In this video, I want to talk about the system of Jim Crow segregation, which was common in the United States from about 1877 to approximately 1954, although it goes a little bit farther than that. Now, you're probably familiar with some of the aspects of Jim Crow segregation from the Civil Rights Movement. Jim Crow segregation involved the loss of voting rights for African Americans, as well as separate public accommodations. And by public accommodations, I mean all sorts of public spaces in American life. So this might be transportation, separate areas and trains and buses, or hotels, bathrooms, swimming pools, water fountains. So these places in public life where African Americans were put in the place of a second-class citizenship, where they could not experience the full range of movement, job benefits, protection of the law, or really any of the aspects of American citizenship that are the benefits that come with paying taxes and abiding by the law. And during this period of Jim Crow, this kind of segregation was legal. This was not just in practice, but encoded in the law. So where did this system of Jim Crow come from? Well, let's start with the name Jim Crow. Now, Jim Crow was not the name of a specific person. Actually, Jim Crow was the name of a stock character. A stock character is kind of a basic, well-known character in usually a comedy. And we still have stock characters in comedy today in lots of different forms of entertainment. Think of the absent-minded professor, or more recently, the manic pixie dream girl. You know, the girl who's going to change her whole life by being so off the wall. Well, Jim Crow was one of these characters in a form of entertainment called the minstrel show. And the minstrel show was a very popular kind of vaudeville type live performance. And the minstrel show was actually very popular in the north of the United States, places like New York City, in the 1830s, 1840s, kind of this antebellum period before the Civil War. So this character of Jim Crow was supposed to be kind of the stupid slave who lived on the plantation. And this character of Jim Crow was almost always played by a white man wearing black makeup on his face. So it was not an actual African-American person, but rather a caricature of an African-American person by a white man who was part of a minstrel troupe. And so the name Jim Crow became kind of synonymous with African Americans and with enslaved people in the early 19th century, the way that, say, Paddy became synonymous with an Irish person. So the term Jim Crow law, or the Jim Crow system, means laws that were specifically aimed at African Americans. All right, so that's the origin of the name. But where did the system come from? And for that, we're going to have to do a fairly deep dive into American history. And I won't be able to go into everything here, but let's kind of look at this from the 1,000-foot view and get a sense of the overall pattern of slavery, the Civil War, and race relations after the Civil War to see where Jim Crow starts. Now, I've been daring here and done a vertical timeline. The first thing we have on here is the end of the Civil War. Now, before the Civil War, in the southern part of the United States, which I have outlined in red here, most of these states had legal slavery. And in these states, or the colonies that preceded them, starting about 1620, they imported African slaves to be unfree laborers on cash crop plantations. And these might include tobacco or cotton. And that system of slavery persisted until the balance of power between the North, where slavery was largely illegal, and the South, where slavery was the backbone of the economic and political system. Eventually, it tore the country apart into the Civil War. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States, issued the Emancipation Proclamation, saying that all enslaved people in the states which were currently in rebellion were now free. But it wasn't until the end of the Civil War that slavery's end was official everywhere in the United States. And the end of slavery really posed a problem for the states of the South. Now, obviously, this was a wonderful thing for people who had been enslaved. Now they had full freedom to move and work and marry whomever they pleased, at least in theory. But it also meant that the system of slavery, which had dominated the politics, the economics, the social system of the South for more than 200 years, was now over, and something had to replace it. So in the immediate period after the Civil War, the question is, what are race relations going to look like in the South? How will whites and blacks relate to each other without the system of slavery, which has dominated the entire region for more than 200 years? And we'll get into that in our next video.
All right, so take a look. So if you look at, let's look at our digital notebook here. Let's talk about some of these questions and go ahead and just start typing some of the answers in the chat here. When did the Jim Crow laws begin in the Southern United States? Okay. Yeah, right, good, 1877. And I believe the video said maybe shared up until, what was that, 1954, perhaps. Okay, so, and then if we look at, so again, we can go ahead and type that in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and minimize our video here.
In this video, I want to talk whomever they pleased.
Pause it right there. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add that anyways, just as some extra thing, 1954. I think it's good. We can provide a little bit more information. That's not a problem. Okay, what did Jim Crow laws prevent African Americans from doing in their everyday lives? What would you let, what things can we add to that list? Yeah, voting rights. I mean, honestly, that's a lot of it. Major part of it was voting rights. Okay, but then yeah, you do get into things like, what do they call those? Public accommodations, right? Yeah, bathrooms, water fountains, right? My goodness, spelling terrible here. Bathrooms, theaters, yeah, restaurants, right? All those types of kind of just all entertainment, right? Everything was separated. Everything was separated. Now, were these laws legal during this time? Were these laws legal? Yeah, they were completely legal. It doesn't mean they were right, but they were legal at this time. And why were they legal? Why were they legal? What made them legal? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What made these laws legal? What makes a law legal? Yeah, we're not necessarily getting into why, but yeah, the government created these laws. They were they were the people in control. And so they went through the necessary channels to create these laws. Okay. All right, so yes, it was legal. And let's see here. Yes, because they were created by the government, by the people in power. Okay. How was Jim Crow a stereotype? How was Jim Crow a stereotype? This idea of Jim Crow, or even this label. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. What do you think? Where did the name come from? Yeah. This kind of from this minstrel show, like this idea of a dumb slave from the plantations, and that's this persona that this Jim Crow character always took on in these shows and these comedies. And that's what it is. It just put this label on the slaves of that time. And that's just kind of the generalization, and even worse, stereotype that was created by this character. And they call it a stock character. Okay. Now, was this the creation of these laws just a coincidence or intentional following the end of slavery? What do you think? Yeah. Why do you think? Why do you think intentional? Good. Why do you think highly intentional? Yeah, yeah. It's all about control, maintaining that power, right? So if kind of keeping that separation between Black and white Americans, taking away the voting rights of African Americans that allow the white Americans to stay in power, to stay in control. Okay, so that's what we're looking at during this era. And these laws were legal, not right, but legal, okay, during this time. And they specifically targeted and discriminated against Black Americans. Okay. Now here's what I want you to do now. Okay. So hopefully you have those 5 questions answered. Those 5 questions answered from that video. Now, these are the next set of videos here. We've got the second one, which is here, and then the third one at the bottom of the Canvas page. The links are also available to you in the digital notebook. So you see video link here and then here as well. Okay. But I'm going to go ahead and end class there, but I want you to go to the ticket out the door, please. Ticket out the door. And I'm going to open up a new window. Slide it over here where y'all can't see it, and take a look and see who has and has not completed the starter from today. All right, so everybody take it out the door, please. All right, so yep, for your asynchronous time, you have to do both of the remaining videos that are on page 56.